Cool. All right. Hey, THL. We've got Salty Saturday here for week 4 of season 5. I'm Slimsh as usual, and tonight I'm joined back with JB.
Hey, yeah, 1 week hiatus, but I'm back due to popular demand of a guy in the chat who has a suspiciously similar name to mine actually.
Haha. Yep, Hearthstone Academy's finest too. It looks like this week you've gotten a win over Team Avatar, so that's pretty good.
Yeah, and I just want to note that once more I got the win with Hunter, so I just got going for the style points too.
All right. Well, we're gonna see a little bit of that tonight, so pretty
I
good that you did.
noticed. I'm
So
very excited.
So tonight, first up, we've got a few matches. We've got Detective Diamond of Team Supreme. Haven't seen any Supreme yet, which is my team, so a little biased there. Against Rock Base from 1600 Dust. This is a 4-seed match. And we'll talk about the classes they've got, but then later we also have Salt, captain of Team NWA against Kick Tripod on Team Well Met. And Rogue JT from the Bad Hombres versus Ham of Noob Central.
The bad hombres, I just want to mention, even though they could be doing a little bit better with their just constant Hunter picks, they really they have my respect just as a team. I gotta say.
Yes, something to point out about the Hombres and this week, they are solidified in picking Hunter, Mage, Rogue, and Shaman, and their words, it's because it spells out Hombres.
Oh,
Or
that's good.
about as close as it can. So they're styling a little bit, and they're a very interesting team. And Rogue's a very interesting player. So I look forward to seeing him. He was a team rank 5 superstar rookie last season from the 5 seeds, so
Oh yeah,
okay, so we can talk a little bit about Detective Diamond Rock Base's lineups. Detective Diamond has Priest, Shaman, Warlock, Warrior, and Rock Base has Rogue, Shaman, Warlock, Warrior. So they differ on the Rogue and the Priest, which I would think would end up favoring the Rogue in the end, potentially.
In general, yeah. I
Depends.
mean, it depends on the type of priest. I mean, if you're dragon, any sort of priest. Okay, so it sounds like we're having a double shaman ban without too much surprise. But I think dragon priest. I mean, any kind of priest is just going to be kind of bad against rogue, right? But I think dragon priest is kind of the lesser of those evils because you do have the chance to just sort of curve out and beat the rogue down before they can put together all the damage they need to kill you.
Yep, it can happen, for sure. Yeah, so double Shaman ban makes a pretty good amount. It's still the most banned class. People do differ a little bit to ban other things here and there, but I think with these lineups, it's pretty straightforward. Sometimes with Rogue, you like to kind of ban the Warrior, potentially.
I'm a little bit surprised at Detective Diamond banning the Shaman though upon further thought because he is running Priest and Priest is actually a fairly strong matchup against Shaman if depending on how you have it built, but just generally I mean you have all the healing and all the early removal like Shadow Word Pain.
Yeah,
I'm just a little bit surprised by that ban I
yeah.
suppose. I
It's
mean,
not it's
yeah.
not the greatest matchup in the world. It can Shaman can be pretty reasonable against taking out. Even though it might be an aggressive Shaman, they're pretty good at just playing the trading game too, especially with the early minions and Flame Tongue Totem. They kind of rip Priest apart
No, I mean, and
generally.
that is true. And I mean, no matter how, and the other thing is like, no matter how good the matchup is necessarily, Shaman just always has that potential to just curve out perfectly and cheese out a win by turn 5.
Yes. Oh, and worth mentioning the Team Supreme is currently up 10 points to 5 against Team 1600 Dust. So a win here for Detective Diamond basically seals it. Looks like they both queued up with their unique classes.
Yeah, that's very interesting to see. We see right off the bat in on Rockbase's hand a South Sea Deckhand and Argent Horse Rider. So it looks like we may actually be seeing an aggro rogue. How do you think this affects the matchup?
I think it makes it a little bit better for the priest because the full-on Miracle Rogue is probably worse. I don't know if there's room for gadget sands in this sort of build. So
I mean, we
yeah.
see the Argent Horse Rider and we see the South Sea Deckhand, which are a little bit unusual. We all do also, however, see the questing, which is something that's pretty much standard.
Yeah.
So this may be one that's a little less focused on the draw potential and more just focused on the win condition that Miracle will have by having just by turn 4 having a couple of concealed 8/8s on board.
Yeah.
So that's a little interesting.
It's pretty interesting that Detective Diamond opted to keep a Shadower Death in the mulligan, and Rockbase decides to not trade it all with the Twilight Whelp. That's going to go down getting punished pretty heavily either with the Powered Shield or the Cabal Talon Priest. I like the Talon Priest.
Oh yeah, I mean, you just want to get bodies out on the board. With Dragon Priest versus aggro, its strength is that it can put out really strong bodies early to counter aggro. Instead of just throwing up taunts and hoping for the best, it is able to put down solid bodies and make really strong trades if needed. And I do think, but at the same time, if you are on the side of Rock Base, you're kind of thinking, well, I mean, I could trade here, but then my win condition here is just hitting the face over and over again. So it's
sooner before the taunts come out, the better.
Yes, so it's something that that can be a really tough consideration there. I mean, we see a fair bit of damage being done. Probably not as much as Rockbase would hope at this stage of the game, but the board is also expanding very quickly for Dragon Priest.
Right. The Northshire Cleric's really good. Gets the draw and also has the 1/3 to help take out this Horse Rider eventually. So yeah, Rockbase could have gone in on the questing, but decides to wait. Pretty smart.
Yeah, and this is just
going all for the dome with double eviscerate.
I mean, with double eviscerate in hand, yeah, he could just get a surprise win. Detective Diamond's probably feeling fairly comfortable right now. We see the Draconid Crusher come into hand, which is not a choice you see too frequently in Dragon Priest, but I know a couple of people who swear by it in all Dragon decks, because who doesn't like a 6-mana 9/9, right?
Yeah, I think it's a measure to be a little bit better against Renal Lock. Now, I think that what Detective Diamond did last turn in healing the minion to get the draw was pretty good, but yeah, I think this turn it's without the taunt even, it probably would have been a heal to face. I think you might want to start squeezing those in, because Rockbase has shown no desire to be trading.
Yeah,
it's kind of scary.
Minions, yeah. It's at this stage of the game, I mean, you have such healthy control of board, whether or not, because I mean, even if you have a 3/2 out there instead of a 3/4, and at this point you have pretty much all the cards in your hand that are going to decide the game, like one way or the other. Further card draws don't mean nearly as much. We do see kind of a switch up here from Rockbase, starting to go for the board clear over the.
That's a big commitment.
Face.
Takes out the Cleric too, which is interesting because I don't know that future card draw was really the most important thing. Detective Diamond's got a huge hand. If a minion was going to be eviscerated, maybe the Cabal Talon Priest was the better choice.
Yeah, I mean, also, all of a sudden, there's just like not that much damage in hand at all for Rockbase. It went from having a fairly healthy amount of damage to just looking like very little.
I think Detective Diamond purposefully squeezed in the heal rather than the Wormrust Agent to exactly pull off this combo, which, of course, it's vulnerable to sap, but then you just replay it.
South Sea Captain coming to hand isn't going to do too much, and right now it's really, I mean, we've already seen one Eviscerate used from the side of Rockbase, but it's looking like things are getting very rapidly out of hand here for Rockbase on the aggro rogue.
Yeah, this has to get concealed to be protected, which isn't ideal, and then you could also squeeze in Eviscerate, since that board's getting pretty out of control. But maybe you need that Eviscerate to get through. I guess he's just going to soften it up.
Yeah, I mean, what could he draw here? I mean, I guess he could draw something like Sap, or if he has some sort of charge minion to get through it. I'm not sure, because you have to be almost certain that a heal is coming down on that taunt, just for all it's worth.
Yeah, and then basically at that point, the questing will contest it. So it looks like it's going to be Nether Spite, and yeah, at this point, the Nefarian is a little overboard, but I think Detective Diamond's feeling good about the position that he's in.
Yeah, might as well pick the biggest possible thing. I mean,
it's quite the choice.
It is quite a choice. In all seriousness, I mean, the Twilight Whelp is much more likely to be played this game
right now
than the Nefarian ever is. Yeah, it could have been played right that turn.
Yep.
And yeah, just continually not very exciting draws coming out. I mean, we see Rockbase is able to get through the taunt here, but after that, I mean, his board's just going to get cleared. And
yeah, I think what Rockbase has in this deck, I think it really shines with things like that South Sea Captain, which you never see. That card does a lot of work, but it has to be early in the game, and preferably while, sometimes the patches even stays on board for a while and becomes a 2/2. So I just don't think that Rock Base was able to get enough momentum early with what this deck really needs. It's not like Miracle Rogue decks where they can come back from behind with a big auctioneer. THL.
Yeah, and that's and yeah, and I was just about to point out, yeah, while it's all well and good, like you're just fully committing to the win condition of getting huge concealed minions. I mean, where that falls flat is if you don't get the really strong opening, if you don't have solid board control and are pushing a lot of damage by about turn 4 or 5.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you find yourself in a situation like this where your opponent has a big board and is at a fairly high health total, and you just don't really have anything to respond.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're gonna
Yeah,
see
and at this
Rockbase
point,
doing what he can.
yeah, Rockbase is just dead to 2 damage at this point. So yeah, Cold Blood seems perfectly reasonable.
Like
doesn't really make-
he's
It doesn't
fighting a
really
good fight.
secure many outs because one draw, 8 damage can't be done with one draw. Detective Diamond can't kill right now, but a Shadow Word Death trade seems pretty reasonable.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think Detective Diamond at this point would have to be somewhere in the range of clinically insane not to clear off these minions.
Yeah, it's
Not
not
to
even
fully clear
necessary
off
to
his
squeeze in a
minions.
heal.
Yeah, because I mean, there's no possible card that Rogue could draw that deals 9 damage in one turn.
No, not with just the one draw. It would have to be even an Auctioneer if it was in the deck couldn't save things right now. Drake
still isn't enough.
Drake fan into backstab, but they can't go in that order. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and that's just going to be. I think it's going to be it right there.
Yeah.
Recognizing is going. Rockbase goes for the honorable way out.
The
Goes down
honorable
with
way
dagger
out.
in hand. Dagger in hand, punching a 5/4.
I think so Rockbase shows his hand with the more aggressive rogue. Maybe that will shine more against Detective Diamond's warrior, potentially. It can't be much worse against Warlock. I think these rogues can close out games against Reno if that's the build. I'm not gonna spoil what Detective Diamond's playing. Ruin the allure.
That's true, yeah. Since you're on the same team, you probably know all of his decks, I would imagine.
Oh yeah, there's some spicy stuff coming up.
I'm looking forward to it. I am a fan of spicy decks.
I think tonight's going to be a really unique night. There were some whispers from Salt, who brought Druid. He's got a very interesting build to look out for. I don't want to spoil too much if his opponent's in chat, but there's some spicy stuff coming. I doubt a ban is going its way, so.
Oh, you fooled us. You fooled us. We're coming into the game. It does. You made it seem as though it was Reno Warlock, but then it turns out it looks like it's going to be a Zoo.
Yes.
You deceived us all.
Zoo against aggro. Wait. Oh, okay. So Rockbase has queued the Shaman, but the Shaman was banned. So that's an instant loss for Rockbase, assuming that it was truly a Shaman ban.
Yes, I mean, there seems to be some confusion on the side of Detective Diamond, so I do think that it was a Shaman ban. And that's always unfortunate when that happens, but sometimes, I mean, you just want to get that Shaman out there because I am guilty of that, thinking like I'll be looking down my lineup like, what do I want to bring out next? And it's like, oh wow, this one deck is good against everything I could possibly face, and then you realize that your opponent banned it for exactly that reason.
That's unfortunate. You hate to see that.
Yeah, that is too bad.
Yeah, so I don't like when these things happen, but it's pretty clear in the rules, because if you queue up something that was banned in the Conquest format, there's actually a good amount of information gained about what you were queuing up. So yeah.
Yeah, and that's a little bit rough. I mean, you never like to see that, but you just gotta move forward. I mean, mistakes are made. Like, mistakes happen. It's just one of those things. I mean, I never like getting a default win over an opponent for any reason of any kind. Because you wanna because I mean, we're not playing for money or anything, right? We're playing for bragging rights and honor, and it's not much to brag if you don't actually beat your opponent.
Right.
All right.
I'm actually rereading the rules here, although I'm pretty familiar with this one. If the mistaken deck is not eligible, game is counted as a loss for the player with the ineligible deck. Yes, these are our rules. So
and that's
yeah,
just...
Zoo is OP apparently.
yeah, it's so good that it didn't play a single card and it won that
Yeah.
game.
What I'd recommend to all players out there is keep a notepad in front of you and trust it 100%. Don't ever trust your brain on what you can queue at any point. Just let notes make the decisions.
Yeah, that is a really good piece of advice. I've learned to live and die by the notepad on, because I remember there was one time in one of the first open tournaments I played, I queued in my band class, and so I lost that game and then lost the match because of it, and then never again. I have never made that mistake since.
Right. So
With
it looks
good
like
reason.
now we have the Pirate Warrior mirror, and you definitely don't take Life Tap. Life Tap's
Oh, no.
great, but
Oh, well,
especially with the Azure Drake in hand, it seemed like as weird as Dagger Up would be, it'd be kind of great.
I think I'm actually in this matchup. I'm a big proponent of taking Dagger. Actually, just in general for Pirate Warrior, I think the Dagger. I mean, for because I'm used to seeing Finley in the context of aggro Shaman, where Dagger is not the greatest choice. But in the context of Pirate Warrior, where so much of everything you do is weapon dependent, I'm actually not that. I wouldn't have been that upset to see that choice.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about the poke from the Buccaneer into the Buccaneer? That seemed interesting.
I mean, it does keep. I mean, I think the thinking was probably. I mean, it did leave him open to the just a very even trade on the Finley. I mean, at the same time, it buffed up his frothing, so you can go
Yeah.
either way on that one. But I mean, now that he is able to kill it off, I mean, it looks really good. And even though your opponent does have a frothing, I mean, your frothing is always going to be two bigger than theirs. So
Right, and yeah, it just goes to face because Detective Diamond realizes that either of these core crown elites can kill the frothing if it's an issue. If the frothing kills the Bloodsail Raider, then your frothing's probably not dead, and then you can trade with it yourself and just kind of exchange huge frothing blows. But now it just makes the safe play. That's smart.
now something interesting. So it looks like it's going to be straight up Pirate Warrior versus a
Dragon Pirate Warrior.
Something very interesting about the Dragon Warrior is I feel, and I think that Vicious Syndicate backs me up on this one. I was just thinking about it, and it turned out it was actually justified for once. The things I think are justified versus just being what I think. But I feel that it's kind of the situation with the old mid-range hunter versus face hunter, right? Like,
Yeah.
Mid-range hunter had a better win percentage than face hunter against every single matchup except for specifically against mid-range hunter, and I feel like that's kind of the same thing here, because against most other people you see Pirate Warrior just has a much better win rate than Dragon Warrior, except for specifically against Pirate Warrior is those early taunts in the form of the in the form of the Twilight Guardian, and sometimes even a Fierce Monkey just goes such a long way.
Yeah, the taunts make a huge difference in this mirror. I think this is actually I don't think too highly of most builds of Dragon Warrior, but I think this is one of the reasons you would play it.
Yeah, just to beat up on Pirate Warrior specifically.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not too bad just by itself. The hybridized version does have some strengths.
And I mean, we saw that Twilight Guardian was just such a huge. I mean, it removed so many points of stats off the board for one drop. I mean, it was a 2-for-1 trade, which really, I mean, Detective Diamond was getting very far ahead, and that just kind of absolutely stunted his progress on board. And now all of a sudden he finds himself in a very precarious situation just because of that one card.
Yeah, it's kind of a race, which I think it's one that between squeezing and armor ups, it might actually be one that he can win between this Arcanite Reaper, aka Pyroblast, and Leroy, and even the squeezing in of armor ups is kind of a big deal too. And
Yeah,
Life Tap's not doing rock base any favors.
Yeah, it's definitely not, and that's why we were discussing when he made the choice of Life Tap. We were thinking, I don't know, that's the best decision, because here, assuming that he can live, I mean, he has enough. He has 16 damage in hand over the course of the next 2 turns versus 14 health on his opponent's side. So it'll be if enough we can see enough damage come out of rock base to make up for that. But we see him trading instead of going face, which I mean he has to do, right? Because you just need to cut down on some of this damage. But it looks like, I mean, unless something weird happens, because
Wow. It seems like
Oh.
wow, the Arcanite Reaper being oozed was going to be the one hope, but now Detective Diamond picks up enough damage to finish the job.
Oh
If
yeah,
that's the
and
case.
I hadn't even realized that. Yeah, and we can't. Yeah, here it's not possible for Rock Base to finish off his opponent this turn. So, and with the
Yeah.
lack of an armor up, he's just going to. That's going to be it with Leroy and the Heroic Strike.
Yeah, the life tap. I think Rock Base maybe only life tapped once, but even that one life tap, well, it would have been lethal here regardless. But I was trying to make a point about that one life tap being
Yeah.
bad.
No. I mean, it was still a poor decision, and that was not a long series, Slim. that went
No,
by pretty
in fact,
quickly.
I hope the others are ready because they're usually not ready. At this point.
According to my handy clock I have here, that was less than 20 minutes for that series. But I guess when you have some very, very fast, aggressive decks, that is what to expect. I'm a little bit disappointed though. Zoo is one of my all-time favorite decks, so I'm
Yeah, I
a
like
little
Zoo.
bit sad we didn't get to see it play.
Yeah, Zoo's classic. Okay, so yeah, that actually locks it up for Supreme this week. So I won't hide my happiness for too long, but we'll go
Oh,
right
that's
back.
okay.
into
I've
other
shown
matches.
my I've shown my bias on stream too many times. Even at this point, actually, this is the first Salty Saturday I will have done where I'm not going to be biased in any of these matchups, particularly. None of my team are playing. Yeah, so we're moving on to the next match, and that's going to be Salt versus Kick Tripod, I believe.
Yeah, and apparently Kicked Tripod isn't online at the moment, and understandably so because we are not in the current time range when they normally expect. So we might actually go offline here for a second because it was so fast, and it wasn't even the fact that it was a sweep. It was because of the error which led to one match basically being decided in the mulligan. I think if
Right.
even if that was a win, I think we'd be at the normal time. So yeah, I think we might actually have to break and then let the 10-minute delay catch up for the next match.
All right.
All right, so yeah, I think that's going to be it. So we'll be around in about, I want to say 10 minutes, but it'd be 20 with the second delay. So yeah, this is a bit of a new one.
Yeah, it's an extended commercial break, we can call it.
All right, so we'll see you guys when Kick Tripod comes online. So stay tuned and don't go too far.